Good morning, everybody. Good to have you here. We are live here, Lumberjack Landlord, on Sundays, as we always are, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. I bet you thought you were going to get out of not having to do today, but no, that's not the case. I actually just forgot to set it up last night because I was in my boot camp for 2.5 hours, which was absolutely awesome. So super excited to have started the boot camp with the new set of students, and then we have another set of students this afternoon at 1 o'clock Eastern Time. So we will be a hard stop at 5 of 1 today, regardless of the questions or number of questions that I get, because we are going to be in the boot camp. We have boot camp number 2. It's not day 2; it's day 1 for boot camp number 2. So we're super excited to get in there. Which is just a great time. Last night was absolutely awesome. Asked the students at the end of the class, I said, how was today? They were like, it's awesome. It's fantastic. I learned so much. This was great. And I was like, well, buckle up because we got 11 more weeks of this. So really excited to be doing another boot camp. Actually, really excited to be doubling up on boot camp and all the stuff that we're going to be doing in the course over the next 12 weeks. Just wanted to do a kind of a quick update for everybody this morning because last week we talked about a lot of different stuff. We talked about court and we talked about evictions and we talked about my audit and we talked about all of this other fun stuff that's going on. And so kind of had updates on all of that. And actually, I think we had some updates that we covered last week a little bit, but where we stand now is this is that time of year. And good morning, Senya, with a K, but sounds like an S. But good morning, Senya. So what's really cool about kind of where we are in this type of season is that for most of the country, there's not nearly the amount of seasonality that there is in the Northeast. Certainly, and when I say Northeast, it really does kind of cover, really all the northern states. It's the ones that get wintry, So, Massachusetts, New York, Vermont, Maine, New Hampshire, Michigan, certainly, somewhat Illinois, somewhat Ohio, somewhat Indiana, much more so in, Minnesota, Montana, Idaho, the Dakotas, Washington, sort of depends on where you are in Washington. But those areas really are the ones that, really get more of the seasonality stuff. It can get really, really, really cold. It's been unseasonably warm here. Thank God. I was looking at my plow bill for the season this year, and we're at about 40% of where we were last year. So I am just hoping and praying that we don't have a late snap where it gets chilly. But for us, what we typically see is rents in December are dead, rents in January dead, rents in February dead. And then we start to see some activity of people looking in February for a March 1. What we really start to see is a lot of people. It probably doubles or triples in size. The market does. It typically doubles or triples in size in March. And so those are then people that are looking for an April 1 or a May 1. And then April happens and it gets ridiculous. It gets absolutely ridiculous. To give you an idea, we had 10 units. 10 units go to market now 2 weeks ago. And so 10 units went to market 2 weeks ago, and we are, I believe we're full all but one. So we filled 9 units in 2 weeks. And yes, it was due in large part to my amazing capabilities in ad writing, but also the team that I have in place. I have a great agent. It's contacting folks and setting up and getting them pre-qualified so they can come and get a showing. And we do open houses. So we get what's called a one-to-many event, where it's one of us and many prospective renters, but they're qualified. So this is a lot of the stuff that we covered in the course last night, but to kind of bring you guys up to speed and share that with you, we're also in that season where it's now past winter time. People that may have struggled but still made their rent payments. Now it's, smoother sailing for them, certainly for the seasonal workers. landscaping guys and things like that, because in landscaping, they only depend on snow plowing in the wintertime. But once you get to spring, now it's okay, game on. Now it's all the yard cleanups, it's all the plow repairs, meaning that, ripped up yards and things like that happen now. That then translates into them having more disposable income, and quite frankly, they don't have to live off of what they made over the course of the wintertime, because this year in particular was tough. That being said, what also ticks up is evictions. Evictions tick up this time of year. No one wants to kick somebody out in January or February. I know I don't want to, but we do everything we can to try and get them on the same page. Get them on the same page and say, hey guys, let's go. We need to see an improvement here. If we don't see it, then we're going to just post and we're going to get out. So we also have our list of our bottom 10 units that are lowest rents that we're going to be looking at, and doing Dion's binder method or our text method. They're kind of one and the same. We just deliver everything through text. We don't show up and do it in person with a binder. We actually just, and again, a majority of our tenants are sub 40. So they actually appreciate not having to sit down and have confrontational conversations. They much rather see it through text. And we're good with that. I prefer that for them as well. I've been told I can be intimidating. I don't understand why, but I guess some people are intimidated. So that's okay. We just have the conversation. So where we are and kind of where we'll be over the next few weeks is we filed already for a couple of evictions. One of them was one that we made an agreement on timing of payment. Friday came and went, no payment was made. I was told I'll be getting a call from a couple of people on Monday regarding that payment. But the payment wasn't made. And so unless there's an exact time frame of when that payment's going to be made in the next couple of days, I'll file a non-compliance and we'll finish off that eviction. We'll get a writ of possession and we'll get that tenant out. Because that tenant just has quite frankly not followed through on anything that she said she would. And so we'll just follow through and we'll get that eviction done and we'll get somebody else in that unit. So exciting time. Springtime is that time where we have, that's our heaviest turnover time. And when I say heaviest turnover time, in previous years, there was a lot more to it, or a lot less to it, I guess is probably the better way of putting it. There was a lot less to it, not just because of fewer units, but because in that springtime, there was less to it because we hadn't inherited so many tenants. And over the last couple of years with all the buildings we bought, we've inherited a number of tenants. Our goal is always to try and make it work with the existing tenant. That's always our goal. However, often they've been shown that bad behavior and is not really called into question. So, constantly late on payment or, constantly leaving trash outside, and we have to cite them for it and say, listen, you guys got to get this done. So this is that time where we kind of cleanse the system. So far, what I've seen is a huge number of renewals coming through for 2024 to 2025. We've had our corporate contracts that we've had with those organizations. We've actually had all of those expand. So they're getting more housing from us than they have ever gotten from us before, because those businesses are expanding, which is exciting. We always like to see our customers expand. And then there was kind of the biggest one that we've been working on, which was a building that I own that quite frankly was probably my most challenging thing yet, was effectively how to work with a tenant that has a business that really serves the community is really a challenge. And I was hoping for something a little bit more organized, but that's what had me working 12 and 14-hour days this last week. I honestly don't know how I ever had a W-2 job. I certainly don't have time for it. Certainly not now anyway, but hopefully that will change over the next, few weeks. That certainly is the expectation, is that things will normalize just a little bit. But yeah, as we kind of look at it, I think that one of the things that we talk about in the course last night was a lot of the nuances of the eviction process. I think that that's really important for landlords to really understand what the workflow is, how you can put yourself in the best position to, have a successful eviction. I think the challenge with, going to court now, I'm 22-0. I've never lost. I think the exciting thing about that is that we know we do it right. But the judge isn't naturally on a landlord's side. They're naturally on the side, I believe they're naturally on the side of justice. And so all you have to do is prove out that this is what XYZ is what's happening. And then it kind of gets us past that. So that being said, I wanted to just kind of cover that with you guys. And then audit news was, we look back at our process. Supposedly we've gotten news that our audits should be closed out in April. We'll actually be getting a refund, which is always good news with an audit. Quite frankly, I'd have taken just not owing anything more and knowing that we're doing things right. The good news is that we are doing things right, but leads me to another point too, where, it's surrounding yourself by the right people. Not just on the investment side, but actually having the right people there to support the business. So Bob Langworthy, Maine Bean Counters, it was amazing having him a part of this process. He's the firm that we use. They're an accounting firm, but Bob specifically is an EA, which is an enrolled agent. And one of the unique granted superpowers that they're allowed to have is that they can actually represent their client in an audit. So what was really powerful about this was I didn't have to spend a bunch of money on a tax attorney. Thank God. Bob was along for that process with us. Bob obviously does have a fee for that because it's above and beyond the normal scope of doing our taxes. But the cool thing is he knows about it, and so being able to manage and to do this process with him, with a professional, it was great. We walked in prepared, kind of refreshed our memories because it was 2021 that they audited us on. But yeah, excited that we got the news that we got the letter this week that we should be getting this wrapped up in the April timeframe. And more importantly, the famous words of no further action are the words that we're looking for. So really excited about that. And then lastly, no, I think I'm going to do that separate. Yeah, I'm going to do that separate. You're going to see a meeting from me or a recording from me this week. Hopefully this week gets a little bit more back to normal because I've got some topics that I want to get videos done on for you guys that are just kind of general updates, but things to be watching out for in the market. So that's kind of everything I wanted to get through with you guys today, except now just answering questions. As I said, 12:55 Eastern time today, I'll be hopping off 12:55. We'll be hopping off this to then go do boot camp for a couple hours with students on our Sunday boot camp. So I'm excited to see all y'all there. Matthew, you're first. Well done. Josh Burdick, good morning. Good to see you. Richard, same. Laura, same. Flavio, good morning. Oscar, good morning. Miss K, Senya, good morning. Fire and Ice, good morning, everyone. Brett Beesboer, good morning. And hit the like button. Thank you, Brett. I appreciate that. Daniel Fiore, Shalom, Land Pimps. That's pretty funny. I like that. T, good morning. Good morning, T. Morning boot camp, 2.5 hours. Absolutely loved it. Thank you, BuzzTune. I thought it was awesome last night. I thought it was really, really good. We open up the class, kind of talk about it for, do some introduction stuff, but then talk about some of the core stuff, answering some of the questions from that. But then we get into the nitty gritty. What are people dealing with? What are people going through right then and there? How can we help them right then and there in what they're dealing with? That's my favorite part. There's the course piece, which is really core and important. It's giving people those ideas, giving people those concepts, and making sure that we're all kind of speaking the same language and how we're talking about our business. But then we get into, this is specifically what I'm dealing with today. And then it gets awesome. It gets really awesome. So yeah, 2.5 hours less than a boot camp. I got upstairs and there wasn't a soul. Wasn't a soul to be seen. But yeah, it was a really good time. Sam Farho, good morning. Daniel Fiore, the flyers on the telephone pole worked again. I know, right? We really drove some. Daniel made a funny post and he's like, yeah, we put flyers on telephone poles. I was like, not anymore. But we have the internet for that. But yeah, well done, Daniel. Chris Culp, good morning. It was good seeing the boot camp last night. Jesse, same. And Don Church, good morning all. Martin Properties, morning, Matt. How much curb appeal do you factor into your properties? I want it to be, so one of the major mistakes that people make is this over manicured house. And here's why it's a mistake. It's not that everybody doesn't want to look at that. It's not that everybody doesn't want to live there, but they live on the inside. And so I've had people literally look at the outside and go, yeah, nothing special. And then they go inside and they're like, holy crap. That's what I want. I want them getting on the inside of the house and going, wow, this is unbelievable. This is amazing. Why? Because people don't live on the outside of the house. They live on the inside of the house. And in New England, 5 months out of the year, they aren't outside at all, except for walking from their car to their house. And a lot of times for a lot of the assets that we own, they're in a downtown area. Oh, excuse me. So they're in a downtown area. Yeah, can you tell I'm tired? Didn't sleep the best last night. Didn't sleep the best. I have a frozen shoulder, and it's really uncomfortable. So as far as curb appeal goes, the other mistake that people make is these over manicured houses. What does that cost? That could cost $2,000 or $3,000 a year in maintenance. What do I want? I want a clean yard if it has a yard. I want it mowed. I want mulch beds filled in the springtime, and then they last, the summertime. And the bushes trimmed back. But that's about it. We're not going over the top anything crazy. If you're talking about the house itself, obviously siding has to be in good shape. Windows, a lot of time we do gut rehabs where the windows are then nice. So it's that sort of thing. But yeah, I'm not going over the top with, these massive ornate flower beds or water features or, any of that sort of stuff, because then again, that really gets expensive. And I don't see that you see a return on those in your rents. Matt, thoughts on building to rent? Looking at stick build or modular multifamily, your thoughts on preferences? My preferences are always multifamily, never single family. The single families that I own, I sell them because maybe it was something that I bought in a package. Maybe it was something that I bought and we rehabbed it and we're selling it. Excuse me. Sorry. Not single family, but yeah, multifamily. As far as build to do that, that can be a challenge. I know around here with zoning, sewer connection fees, one-time special assessment fees, all the fees that go into building here. What you really need is density. And so a single family house, building it to rent out, my guess is that's probably not going to be fiscally sound. But it's all about the numbers. I think you have a better shot of it being sound if you're doing, I think you have a better shot of it being sound and working out if you're doing a small multifamily, 2s and 3s or 4s. Depending on what your rule is. A 4 might require sprinklers, depending on the state that you're in. 3s usually don't. 4s in many states do. So I think it still becomes a math equation. But the challenge with building, if you're linking into a builder that's already paid the lot fee and the connection fees and all that other stuff, and all the fees are kind of all in that number, then it's just a very straightforward number, So I think it can work. I just haven't seen it work anywhere. Oh. And that's not Dion drink. That's just ice cold water. Martin Properties. Bob is awesome. He got us back money for the first time in a long time. That's great. That's exactly, it's one of the reasons I love him. I always tell him, we need to walk the line. I would like a refund, but not at the cost of having to do time. Miss K, LOL. Not in NYC, where judges are always on the side of the tenant regardless of justice. Yeah, that's probably true. That's true. And that's where there's a lot of those, New York City gets the slumlords it deserves. Frankly speaking, they get the slumlords they deserve. There's no slumlords that are worse than they are in New York at all, anywhere that I've ever heard. They get what they deserve because they have the systems that they have. The amount of stuff like that goes on there. It's amazing to me. You just couldn't pay me to invest there. And the numbers are huge, right? The numbers are absolutely huge, but I'll leave it to those guys. The Yoder. Good morning, all. It's another great day to be a landlord. True story. HOA Prez. Make sure you know your state and local eviction rules, of course. In California, plan on using an attorney for all evictions. Judges don't like landlords showing up in court without an attorney. That's generally speaking true. I think the key to it is, I know more than a lot of attorneys know for landlord-tenant law. I've brought stuff to attorneys, had conversations with them. I know a lot more than they do about landlord-tenant law. So I think the biggest thing is be prepared, be organized. It's one of the things that we cover in the course, actually, is being prepared and being organized when you're going to do an eviction. Making sure you have timelines, making sure you have all the supporting evidence, that it's easily navigable for the judge. Lastly, make sure you know the rules for obvious reasons. That makes the most sense. But yes, old guy REI. There's Frank. Good morning, Frank. Mikey was in the course last night. It was good to see Mikey in the course. Good to go through things with him. I'm excited for that. It was a good time. Sam Farho, in Texas, we have some really awesome judges. That's true. That's very true. And I don't want to say it's a blue-red state necessarily, but largely speaking, the states that are governed blue, not how they vote for in the presidential elections and stuff like that, largely speaking, what you'll find is that the red states are usually higher in property taxes. The blue states are usually lower in property taxes. The blue states usually have a lot of other taxes that support programs. And the red states just support them in a different way with fewer taxes, but larger pieces. So as an example, New Hampshire doesn't have a sales tax. We don't have an income tax, but our property taxes are extremely expensive. But that naturally has judges in the state align with the interests of bills being paid because landlords can't pay their taxes if they can't get their rent paid. So that's one of the things that I've always, really appreciate about New Hampshire is it's really kind of common sense approach. But red states and blue states, I've seen good judges and bad judges. It's just like anything else. There's some good rules that work for you. There's some bad rules that work for you. In California, Prop 13, best rule ever. You buy a property and the taxes are $2,000 at that time. They're $2,000 forever. That's pretty awesome. Every single year in New Hampshire, we get reassessed because that's where the state creates its revenue to spend. So yeah, just know that when you're investing, good state, good city, bad city, all that sort of stuff. Brett Biesbauer, in your state, how long does it take someone to small claims court for damages they caused? They moved out, so luckily don't need to evict. I'm going to go through that process. I actually have 5 or 6 cases I'm going to file. We're going to go take these people to court and get paid because they did the damage and I have the proof. So we're going to go through that process with all the pictures, put the cases together, and sue some people in small claims court. My understanding is it takes a couple of months because they are pretty backed up. My understanding is it takes a couple of months, and then we'll have the hearing, and we'll see if I get the judgment, and then we'll have to work out a payment plan. If we work out a payment plan, great. And if we don't, then I get a judgment against them, and I'll sell it to a collections company. That's the way I envision this happening. Ned Talks. What's up, everybody? What's up, Ned? Good to see you. Good to see you, my friend. I did see your email late yesterday before I went into my boot camp. We'll set something up this week. Fire Nice. New York City Housing Authority is the biggest slumlord of all. It's really funny. So many people that are blowhards in my messages on my videos, they act like landlords are going somewhere. Hey, morons, your bus is leaving. Cities, the feds, the states have all tried housing. It's what turns into the projects. That's how well that goes. So at the end of the day, and then they say, oh, look at how we're having to live. Yeah, private landlords didn't do that. Now, are there slumlords? Absolutely. Often what you'll find in areas that have a density of slumlords is you will typically find a lot of rules and regulations around not being able to be a slumlord, but then none of the enforcement there to actually get it cleaned up and done and taken care of. That's what you'll often find. There are people that have had cases in courts for years about a given subject. This is how crazy this is. But see also what happens when you do rent control. Rent control kind of forces the hand on some of these things because they can't afford to fix something because your rent is $700 for an apartment that would rent for $3,000. You can't fix anything when you're getting in $700 a month. That's not going to cover your expenses. So it's really interesting just to kind of see how that there is a chicken and egg, that there is a yin and a yang, there is a pull and a push. So it's interesting to just kind of see some of those things. But I've been in a number of housing authority units. I've been in older ones that are pretty tired. I've been in newer ones that are okay. They're done pretty cheaply, but it really still comes down to the tenant being respectful of the opportunity, being respectful of the space. So that's really, a lot of what I see. But yeah, for these guys who are out there talking about, how landlords are, soon going to be extinct. I mean, wish in one hand and you know what in the other, and let me know which one fills up first. Cities, states, the feds, they don't want to own housing. That's why they constantly create tax incentives to make other people do it. That's why the code is what it is. That's why the tax code is what it is. They want to incent other people to buy their own or to buy something else and rent it out because they know they're not very good at that. Key, good morning. Fire and ice. In blue states and cities, judges are completely anti-landlord. I've seen that largely carry, but not all the time. I'm in a red state governorship, not again, we don't focus on presidential, we focus on governing. And then the state legislature. And in our state, we're red in that regard. And so we see pretty consistently, we see judges that are more about justice and the proving of the facts, not going in with a predisposition. However, I've seen a judge or two be a fairly poor judge and constantly giving the tenant more bites at the apple. And I'm like, maybe you should just get off the bench and come down here and just do this for them, So it's interesting to watch that transpire. Talia Smith, hi Matt. My first super chat, I may have messed up. My tenant has junk piled up. That's okay, Talia. Has junk. Did you? Oh no, you did. You got it. You're perfect. Sorry, I missed it. Blind. Me. My tenant has junk piled up in the yard and patio. I gave the tenant 3 weeks to get it cleaned up. What would you have done? Not given them 3 weeks. That's it. I would have looked in my lease. I would have something there that says, I usually have something in there around trash, disposal of it. That I usually have something in there. I do have something in there about trash. I do have something in there about like the following local codes and ordinances. So I just know what those trash ordinances are. So at that point, I can then cite them on the lease. I can then cite them with not with eviction paperwork, but with a formal notice. Hi, per your lease, this section, it states that you'll follow New Hampshire law or community law, and this trash has been out there, and this is what the rules are, and that's in violation. Please get this taken care of in a timely manner, or we will be forced to post a second violation notice. That's how we do it. John Williams, good morning, gang. Good morning, John. In the boot camp last night, it was good to have you. Old REI guy. Thanks, Matt. We still have 6 boot camps left to go, but I couldn't get in last night. Oh, are you there today? Boot camp 3 doesn't show as an option for us. Oh, interesting. Frank, I will figure that out. I will make sure that we get you in for those. Frank, are you able to make it? Shoot me a link below. If you're able to make it today, I'll get you in for today, and then I'll get you in the Saturdays moving forward if you want to do that. HOA Press. San Francisco just passed a vacancy tax in an attempt to stop landlords going out of business, topping off at $5,000 a year. May or may not hold up in court. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason I don't invest in developments that have HOAs. Not interested. I'm not going to fight their people. Not interested in cities like San Francisco that I think, quite frankly, is an ongoing travesty and a dumpster fire. I was there 20 years ago. It was a pretty nice city. And I was there a few years ago, and it's a complete and total dump filled with homeless people that they don't take care of. And quite frankly, it's going to just continue to go down that path. So, and that city has been, blue for 60 years, 70 years straight. Well, the policies that they have in place are why it is what it is. And what's really interesting is that there's a lot of those tech companies that don't feel the need to be in Silicon Valley anymore. That will continue to shift, I believe. Massachusetts is a big investment community now. One of the top venture capital groups is in Mass. You're seeing a ton of money that moved to Florida because of their state laws. You see a ton of people that went to Texas, and you see massive, massive implementations of tech companies in Texas. So, so for those states that are watching these massive companies with these unbelievable amounts of jobs and income leave, it's the taxes, stupid. And so the cool thing is that these companies it's costly. They will leave people behind that they don't want to, but they need, for the betterment of the business and to be able to consistently grow and to be good stewards of their employees, they need to leave. And so I completely get that. And that's what's going to continue to happen. Keith Hager, morning, Matt and landlords. Josh Burdick, will run to the store. Oopsie, that's okay. I don't need anything while you're there. Thanks for asking. Michelle Meyer, good morning. Good morning, Michelle. Christopher Lear, what percent do you get when you sell the debt to a collection agency? Got it. Ninth grade dropout, bad reader. It depends. So what I try and do is I try and give them a tenant profile. And so I'll give them, hey, this tenant has a 330 credit score, or a 430 or a 530 or a 630 or a 730. The better the tenant was, like from a profile perspective, the more they'll pay for the debt because of the likelihood that they can collect it. If you've got somebody with a 380 credit score, why the hell did you rent to them? Right. But on to that end, you can sell debt, and usually we will talk about what that debt is that we'll sell. So you can get 50 cents on the dollar, 60 cents on the dollar. You can get 10 cents on the dollar or 15 cents on the dollar. Yeah. Can be very little, can be a lot. Yep. That's why the value is in getting tenants with high credit scores and with decent jobs. That's actually why it's valuable, is because they're going to want that thing cleaned and cleared up and gotten off their record. Luke Devine, there are 2 3-plexes on the same land parcel. Is that considered multifamily? A 3-plex is considered a multifamily, just small multifamily. I invest in small multifamily, dupes, tries, and quads. But I also have 5s, 5, 6, 7s, 8s. I have a 10 and a 12. 9. I have a 9 and a 12. So that's considered small multifamily. I actually love those deals because usually people on the math are way off. I bought a lot that had 2 duplexes on it. I bought it for about 50% more than what it was worth with 1 duplex on it. So I got a massive discount on that second house. They were just like, yeah, it's just kind of an odd thing. This goes to show you don't want the wrong agent listing your property. They saw that as a negative. I saw that as a positive because it was still 4 units and it was still separate buildings. What that did was It was 2 duplexes. What that did was it allowed me to not have to sprinkle the building if I rehab it. It gave me a lot of flexibility where I get to give somebody duplex living, even though there's 4 buildings. It doesn't matter. That building's as close as their neighbor is on the other side. Who cares? But then I get to own it all. So I love that property. And we'll probably do a math session on that property because the numbers are off the charts. I bought that for $327,000. I put probably, I don't know. Let's call it 50 maybe into it. So I'm into it for, call it 380. We're into it. The mortgage, taxes, insurance all in is just about $3,000 and the rents are over 8,000. They're over 8,000. Like, that's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. Oh, I see a super chat. Let me just roll down real quick. Miss Senya, Matt, any tips on finding good real estate tax planner accountant? What's the difference between them and an EA and want to hire one versus another? Senya, Maine Bean Counters, Bob Langworthy. I have given him probably 50 referrals because he is the best. I've been doing this for 22 years. I had the same guy for a long time. And then when it was time to move on from him, because we wanted to do more complex things, I interviewed for a year. I interviewed companies. Then in that same year, when I was interviewing those companies, I brought it down to a couple of them. Those couple of them, I gave them my tax return. And I said, tell me how much you're going to charge me, number one. And after you tell me how much you're going to charge me, tell me if the previous return was correct or if I would pay more, if I would pay less. I got it down to these 2 firms, and I then had them explain it to me. I had to pay them to do it, but I then had them explain it to me. Here's why we're doing what we're doing. And when it was all said and done, I picked Bob. He is the best in the business. And the other one wasn't even close. The other one was just flat out bad. So yeah, Senya, I would tell you Bob Langworthy, 1000%. He's the guy you should be talking to. Maine Bean Counters. We have our taxes submitted. They usually have a 30-day turnaround, which is amazing based on how fast they're growing. But they're very, very good at what they do. And the biggest difference there too, Senya, is that they will do planning. That's the biggest difference. It's tax preparation. It's answering your questions. It's talking strategy. I have 2 or 3 strategy calls a year with Bob. That they're paid time. So we don't get them for free. We shouldn't. We're paying for experts' time. And I pay for those engagements. They're about an hour long. We go through it. And then we make any adjustments that we need to for the year to make sure that we are maximizing our opportunities. Whether it's we need to spend more, spend less, invest more, invest less, sell this and take the profit and pay the taxes, or keep it and do a 1031. All of these things, cost segregation studies, all of these things are of critical importance. And like I said, I highly, 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 highly recommend Bob Langworthy, Maine Bean Counters. He is an EA. He has CPAs on staff. He has analysts on staff. That's what I like most about his model, is it's very much analysts and data review based on what we give them and double checking all of that. Then it goes to the CPA and reviewing with the work that they did. And then it goes to Bob and he reviews the work the CPA did. And then he makes his changes. Then we have a conversation. I've already sent him an email. I'm waiting to find out what my 2023 is going to be, because we just finished everything back in early first week of February. And now we're just finalizing it and we're going to get everything filed. So the difference between an EA, an enrolled agent, and a CPA is that a CPA cannot represent you the way an EA can in an audit. And so that's why we wanted to find a firm that had CPAs but also had an EA. Let's see. So Luke, to finish the answer to your question, just in case I went, oops, shiny object. 2 multifamilies on the same lot. I love. What you want to look for is if there's the ability to subdivide. Usually there isn't, but you want to look at it. Don't believe that you're just going to get a variance and have that happen, because variances are very tough to get. You might get what's something called a CUP, a change of use permit. Not that it really matters. But it might also be open to, hey, this is the perfect project to condo. There's a lot of options. There's a lot of options with it, with an asset like that. But I love that type of stuff. Usually you're getting a better deal than if you bought two separate duplexes or two separate triplexes. You're usually getting a better deal. Sorry, I've got to have some caffeine. And this is the only way that I take caffeine. Oh, that's going to wake me up. Dion, what's up, pal? Every time I hit the like button, somebody retires before Millennial Mike. He's young. He's young. He's a lot younger than me. Let's see. But yes, it's not. You're still correct. Hyder's here. Hyder, you're late. It's okay. Sam Farho, I've been recently looking at some small houses sold by Home Depot. And Walmart, and the total cost to get them to come alive from start to end. I am doing the same. Yep. As you guys know, I've been a big small house guy. And I want to be doing, 650 square feet or smaller, 750 square feet or smaller, tiny home stuff. I just don't know how I'm going to get there yet. Don't know what that's going to look like yet. So that's what I'm working towards. I don't know if it's going to be 3D printing. I don't know if it's going to be modular. I don't know if it's going to be like the Boxable idea. Don't know yet. Visited Boxable when I was out in Las Vegas. I believe that's where their headquarters are. But I visited Boxable 2 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago. Amazing facilities, absolutely massive. I mean, I guess they kind of have to be churning out homes, but very cool stuff. So yeah, I think, there's the Home Depot versions. There's a Walmart version. There's a bunch of versions out there. I'm really looking to see, the biggest issue that you're going to have is not just cost, but it's going to be, is the building inspector there going to be comfortable with that type of a rental? And do they feel safe? Because it shows up largely done, and then it's just things hidden in the walls. So the question is will they feel safe about that? So that's for what it's worth. But that's what I'm going to be figuring out here in the next few months as well. Julie Anderson, I'm starting to think that single-family home may be a plan for the future. I believe they will become more rare. In my area, they are very hard to break even on. So I believe that they're going to become more rare for a reason. I believe that people will be buying duplexes and tris and quads with 5% down. I think that a younger person buying a single family home is going to be seen in the next few years as people laughing at that person, and because they didn't buy a duplex or a triplex or a quadplex. That's what I believe. Because I think that more and more people are having to learn the life hack. They aren't building more entry level single family homes. Thus the price is rising, but still far outpacing what a new buyer can afford. And so I think that will create a market where they still sell pretty quickly, but I think you're still going to have pricing pressure. Starter homes that are being built where we are right now, kid you not, $700,000, about 1,300 square feet, 3 bed, 2 bath. They're nice houses, but they're nothing special, and they're $700,000. Yeah, crazy. Sam Farho, Dion, always coming up with something awesome. I know, true. He does. He's a good guy. Miss K, haha, Hyder, great minds. That's right. Dylan, what's up? Good to see you. All nighter. Watch some of your vids. Look forward to seeing you grow. Yeah, Hyder's channel is going to grow. He's doing stuff in the field. Love it. Robert Fernelli, hello, Matt. I made it today. I know, me too. Right? That was fun last night, but it went long. Robert was in the course yet. If you haven't pitched it yet, great boot camp last night. It was awesome. Yeah. So it was So Robert's in the boot camp for the second time. I think we had, so this is our third and our fourth boot camp. And I want to say we had probably 12 or 13 return students. It's a really valuable time. We get to spitball a lot of stuff. So I really like that stuff. So yeah, so it was a really good time. But I'm glad you learned a lot. It's always great. It's always a great time. It's always a great time in the boot camps. HOA Press, I don't see tech leaving Silicon Valley. The top 1% won't leave. Granted, the others might leave. Time will tell. Yeah, but if the top 1% leave, that doesn't leave a whole lot of people left. And they'll follow the money. And a lot of these startups recognize the cost to starting up. And the biggest issue was that's where all the talent was. Now all the talent isn't there. It just isn't. There's a lot of talent in Texas. There's big schools that are pushing out really talented people. And for cost of living, now when they have those big, huge, massive college tuition bills, they can find much lower cost living in Texas and in the southern states, which is going to massively bolster that economy. Not everybody thought all the wealthy YouTubers were going to leave either, and they did. Pretty much all the wealthy YouTubers have left California. The fringe haven't, but it's largely because their business is there. But there's mass exodus. I can read any document that shows me that there's people leaving California in droves. There's tons of people leaving Silicon Valley. There's tons of people leaving San Francisco. There's people willing to spend $100 million to get out of a lease in San Francisco. They don't want to be there so badly anymore. And companies do that when they believe that they can't get all the talent that they need, or they can get the talent that they need somewhere else. And that's what I think is largely occurring. I think that a lot of people are finding that they can actually get the talent that they need somewhere else. And it's much less expensive because the cost of living is much less expensive. So I worked in tech for 26 years. I was out of the Valley for about 10 of those 26. It was a bit different back then, but I can tell you, I've stayed in contact with a lot of folks there, and a lot of the big names that I know, they're not in Silicon Valley anymore. They're not. There's a lot of groupthink there for sure. And so I don't think it's ever going to be bare, but I think it's going to be largely much different than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and 20 years ago. And it continues to change and get worse. If you want to start up a company, California is not the place to do it. You can get tons of talent anywhere else. And there's plenty of investors that invest in stuff outside. In fact, one of the things, being an investor myself and working with funds, they actually like the fact when the CEO or the founder of the startup says, we believe that we could get talent right where we were. And so we looked at an area where we could get a lot of talent. That's where we went because it helped us keep the cost of the business small, which allowed us to better propel growth. So, but that's just from a 26-year tech vet. Sam Farho, how can you refinance after a BRRRR in less than 6 months? I saw some differences between lenders regarding the loan to value and seasoning time. That absolutely comes down to one thing, which is the bank itself. If they are portfolioing that loan, doesn't matter. If they're reselling that to the secondary market, i.e. Fannie Freddie, it does matter. So that's where you have to have the conversation up front with them and tell them what you're doing. Your better bet than BRRRR is a construction loan. That is your better bet. Absolutely. We cover that in the course. I do construction loans, and while every other investor on the planet is shaking in their boots, wondering what the rate's going to be when they finish the project and how high it's going to be and what that then means for the cost of that asset, I'm not worried at all. I have a year. But more importantly, I have a year of interest-only payments. That beats a BRRRR. And I also have a guaranteed fixed rate to start. I win. It's a better product than BRRRR. It's a better process than BRRRR. And so that's why I like construction loans. I do it up front. That also gets me seen in the bank's eyes as a development person. I'm a developer at that point. I'm not just a rehabber. I'm a developer because I'm taking out a construction loan, even though it's not brand new construction. That's not what a construction loan is. A construction loan can be a massive rehab. So it can be any of those things. So yeah, it's always that conversation, Sam. It's in talking with, you want to talk with obviously as many people as you can possibly talk with. But the idea is smaller banks in the community, of the community, for the community, and talking to them about what you're doing up front. And then you keep on calling until you find a bank that makes sense. If they all say no to you, the question you should be asking, if the answer is no, or no, we're not really sure we can proceed with that, what part of what we discussed is the reason that you wouldn't move forward? But again, the mistake that people make is they call the loan officer. The loan officer doesn't make a decision. It's a paper pusher. That loan officer has nothing to do with the approval of your loan. Zero. What you want to be doing is you want to be calling senior lenders. That's who you want to be calling. You can Google it and you can find out who the senior lender is for the bank, and you can position that with them. And then they might push you down to the next tier down, but then you're not going to a loan officer who's way down here. You're going down to a director, maybe even just a VP, or you maybe even the senior lender says, yeah, we don't like that business because of X. But then you hear from them directly, and then you can start to build your rebuttals for why that makes sense for them to do that type of a deal. Peter M. Hey, Matt, with the NAR settlement passing, how do you think this will affect a buyer? How do you see yourself changing, if at all? Would it make sense for someone to get their own real estate license? I don't want my own real estate license because I want the few $1,000s that I might save on a transaction, I lose because the guys that I pick are elite and they are having conversations all the time before properties even hit the market. I use that as a lead generation piece. My guys aren't lousy. The ones that I have, they're top 20 agents in the state. And it's because they know I'm a closer. They know I can close. That's where you want to get to. I picked a young, two of my brokers are really young. One of them's 25, one of them's 28. I've been working with a 28-year-old since he was 24. Maybe even longer, 23. One of my 25-year-old brokers, I've been working with her and since she was 22. Started with them young, told them this is what I want. This is what you need to find me. If you find me this type of a deal, I'll do it. I tell the same thing to wholesalers. If you find me this sort of a deal, I'll do it. Bring me anything, but these are the types of deals I'm really looking for. It gives them, where they already have the customer, it gives them the ability to really go out there and try and farm and hunt and find your business. It's the best part. And then the seller has to pay them money. Okay. Even if I have to participate a little bit, who cares? 5, 10 grand. You wouldn't pay 10 grand and roll it into the price if you found something that was a 13% return? Of course. So I won't get my license. I don't think it makes sense to get your license. I don't see it changing. I already negotiated my rate anyway. The only thing that's really going to happen is they're not going to publish it. So it won't say buyer's fee of 2.5%, seller's fee 2.5%. It won't say that. It'll say 0. But I negotiate that now anyway. I give so much volume when it comes to the number of houses I do. I get a better rate. I don't pay 6%. I would never pay 6%. Ever. Nope. Don't need to. So hopefully that answers the question for you. Robert Fanelli, bought some of the crown molding and baseboard from LaValle Milton. Do you put the crown molding in all rooms or just certain ones? So I limit the amount of crown molding I use because it's expensive to put up. But if we're talking about crown around the cabinets that I use a piece of 5 1/4 base. I turn it upside down and then I use a piece of Windsor on top of that. It looks very elegant. Very elegant. Oh, see another super chat. Let me just go grab that. Master Coach University. Good morning, Master Coach. If we raise our deductible on our HOI, homeowners insurance, should we keep that the same amount in reserve for safety more? Is there a rule of thumb? That is a great question. So we put, so the way that we do it, and we don't recommend this is the strategy that we use that I kind of came up with on my own when I saw what my rates were going to. I have $20,000 deductibles. And so I have 20K deductibles, but very often what a $20,000 job is for an insurance company is not a $20,000 job if you're going out there and hiring the people yourself and getting the job done. So what I would tell you is the way that we looked at it was we had a $50,000 reserve. Well, in that $50,000 reserve, obviously with $20,000 deposits, we can take a couple of hits. Not that we want to, but we talked about this a little bit in the boot camp last night. And I said, if you live in Hurricane Alley, or if you live in a place where you get tornadoes, or if you live in a place where you get, earthquakes and flooding's a little bit different because that's federal. But if you live in a place like that, it's a little bit more difficult to do this strategy because you could have a tornado rip through a town and take all 15 of your homes, and then you owe 15 times 25. So what I would say is you're going to get to a point, Master Coach University, where you're going to start to see that in cash flow. And I think that's good. But yeah, for me, I think the minimum that I would have, after we got up to about a 50K emergency fund, when we got up to probably 10 to 15 buildings. Just because at that point we're like, okay, if we need a $20,000 roof, we need to be able to just write a check. But yeah, for the first 10 to 15 buildings, for the first 10 to 15, we didn't have that big of an emergency fund. We really just tried to, optimize. But what was different about us was we also would go in, we'd buy properties that were owned by slumlords. We'd gut them to the studs and we'd rebuild them back. This is one of the advantages of that strategy, is that we don't have big things like that come along. But from an insurance perspective, yeah, I mean, in my 22 years, thankfully, we've only had one claim. Thankfully, we've had 3 or 4 things that could be claims, but we just decided, we're just going to take care of it, because it wouldn't make sense to then do that and then have have to deal with the rise and the increase in cost. So let me know if that helps, Master Coach. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you give me another one? Sorry. Master Coach University. The other day you said 1,000 square feet if it's a 2-bedroom. What a colossal waste of space. We have lots of 2-bedroom places at 1,000 square feet. Is there any situation where we should keep them 2-bedroom? No. I don't think so. Because 1,000 square foot 2-bedroom, I think, always gets you less rent than 1,000 square foot 3-bedroom. So that's the viewpoint. That's kind of, so I think that's a fantastic question. So much so it's going to get you on screen. So I don't see any reason to keep 1,000 square foot 2-bedroom apartment. I see every reason to find a way to make it 3. Yeah. I have 1,300 square foot units that are 5 bedrooms. Admittedly, it's cramped, but it's really crazy? I still get the Section 8 standard for 5 bedrooms, even though they're small. Still get the standard. That's what bedrooms is, where you get paid the money. That's what sets the price. You might be a smaller 3-bedroom, so you're lower on the range, but I would much rather still have a 1,000 square foot 3-bedroom than a 1,000 square foot 2-bedroom. Yeah, that's. I think that's a great question, but that's how I look at it. Yep. All right, let's go back to. I'm definitely not going to be able to get to all of these, but I will do my best. There we go. Found it. Yes. Old REI guy. What are your thoughts on full replacement coverage versus actual cash value when you insure your properties? We do replacement coverage. We do replacement. Yeah, we do replacement. That's the way we're set up. I don't know that I've heard an argument for why do it cash instead of replacement. I think we've heard arguments before, but for me, I'm conservative in that, from that regard, where I don't really care what it's worth in cash. I really care what it's going to cost me to replace it, because I want it to return so I can have a brand new rental that I can then rent out. So my thing is always replacement coverage more than cash value. Yep. That's just me though. Dividend Dave, hello. Good to see you, Dividend Dave. JMIC, good morning, sir. Been a while since you've been here. Good to have you back. Sam Farho, for yes, that's the difference between the EA can do, yep, CPA work and represent you in court. Correct. Dylan McMahon, if you have to refi in, let's say, 5 years or earlier, does it make sense to get an appraisal to make sure you aren't overpaying? Seller finance. I think it always makes sense to get an appraisal. I think it always does. For larger assets, it's much more about the revenue that they're producing. But again, if I'm buying a $800,000 million, $1.5 million, $2 million commercial asset, I'm spending four grand to get an appraisal. I'm spending $4,000 to get an appraisal. Yeah, that's for me. Even if I know the market inside and out, in fact, I did one, and I still bought an appraisal. I still wanted to see what they thought it was worth. And then, quite frankly, after going through it, I was like, I mean, kind of weak, kind of some silly things that they put in there, but those were things that I could adjust. Yeah. Dylan McMahon, do you screen tenants already living there to see if they can afford rent bumps? Nope, I don't. Starting out, would you recommend slowly up rents to keep people instead of having turnover? I always recommend that. Yeah. I'm not going for the gusto. And we saw a proposal. What's the detail I can give about this? We'll say the proposal was in the teens, millions. So between 10 and 20 million. It was for a number of units. I forget how many. But for all intents and purposes, let's say it's 50 units. We saw a proposal where they were looking for partners. They were looking for money to come in. And they shared some of the math, but they didn't share the important stuff. When it was all said and done, someone sent me the numbers because I had said I just didn't have a chance to figure it out yet. And the return on cash, the cash on cash was 4.7%. How stupid. What a horrible deal. To have that many millions of dollars at risk, that many millions, to make 4% on them, it's less than you're going to get in a savings account, a high yield savings account. I know appreciation. And some of the assumptions they were putting in there with how much they were going to raise rents, they will break it. There was, Dylan, this story is specifically for you. Investor buys a large multifamily. It's about 40 units. They believe that they want a clientele change. They believe that there's a lot of value add there. And they believe that they really want to transition and transform the building. Okay. They go in and was it 20 units? No, it was 40. I think it was 40 units. They go in 40 units and they give everybody notices saying all your rents are going up. They expected that they were going to have about 75 to 80% retention. They had 20% retention. 20. They got so many notices in the next few weeks, and then they tried to put it back in, tried to basically put the genie back in the bottle. They'd already found and signed leases elsewhere. They didn't have a town hall meeting. They didn't have anything where they said, hey, we need to raise prices, blah, blah, blah. And the price raise was aggressive. The price raise was probably about 25%. It was aggressive. And so where did they find themselves? Between 20 and 25% occupancy. That was 2 years ago. Even now today, they've only reached 80% occupancy. And they got in huge money trouble for the last couple of years, having to rehab units and bring up the level and then get them rented, because now they have a whole lot more competition in the area, not only in price, but also in the asset itself. So I never, ever, ever buy a property and then raise rents within 30 days. I never, ever, ever do that, ever. What we want to do in the first 90 days is get to know the tenants. Are they good tenants? Are they easy to work with? Are they disruptive to the other tenants in the building? Do they keep up the place? I want to know them. This is a people business. I want to know them. I want to understand kind of how they are to work with, what they are to talk to, how that kind of works. So Great question, but yeah, I don't want turnover. Don't want turnover at almost any cost. I want to eliminate turnover, really understand the building. 1 second here. I want to really understand the building and the tenants before I start doing any of that stuff. I think people make huge mistakes. That's why when I look at the typical, new big time investor, they're figuring 5 to 10% rent increases every year. They're figuring much lower maintenance costs than what they actually are going to end up seeing. These are a lot of the mistakes that people get into that business make. HOA press. The trick is to find good tenants that don't need to be evicted in the first place. Agreed. Granted that it doesn't always work out that way. True. I think the key is the way you start that is you need to be doing things in a phased approach. We have never gone across our entire portfolio and raised rents across the board. We do it in a staggered approach. Why is that? Because in one group of 20, we might have 6 people or 5 people that say, nope, I want to leave. Well, when I get a unit vacant, I want to rehab that unit, and I can't handle 5 or 6 units at the same time if I have 2 other big projects going on, right? I only have so many resources. That's the thing to think about. So if you stagger it, that's why we always kind of work from the bottom up. We have kind of our bottom 10 renters. Then we have kind of like, okay, these are the people that we can't raise rent on in that list. And so we always have that kind of sliding scale up, but from the bottom, and we'll get to 10. We'll get to 10 that will, that are sizable that we, that we'll look at, if that makes sense. Do you keep, Dylan, do you keep all properties you underwrite in financials somewhere? If so, where? I need a better way of keeping track of this stuff. I have it on a drive on my computer, and I have a folder for every single address. And then under that folder, I have subfolders, which is, taxes, receipts, pictures, lease, listing for the asset on Craigslist or Facebook or whatever. So I just have a folder then with subfolders, and that should be more than enough to keep you pretty organized. What is cash advance? It depends on how you're using it. If you give me more detail, I can tell you. G Lovo. I know it's Glover, but still G Lovo. Matt, thank you for the recommendation. Are they licensed in New York? They are licensed. I believe they've done returns in 44 states, and I'm almost positive New York is one of them. But if you call Main Bean Counters, you'll get a lovely lady named Amy will likely answer the phone. You can tell her, hey, Matt the Lumberjack says hi. She will laugh because she's very funny. But yeah, you'll get Amy on the phone, and she will be able to tell you that. I'm pretty sure that they are, Senya. Dylan, difference between line of credit and equity line of credit. Question 2, do you know how much about development from ground up? If not, any recommendations to check it out? So yes, I can do, I've done a number of engineering projects. I can do ground up. I just don't find the value in it with what our startup costs are for it. But yeah, you could teach a whole class on that for sure. HOA prez. If it is a civil tax issue, then an EA will probably be good enough. It is a criminal tax case, then you need a tax attorney. Yeah, largely speaking. Yep. But there are no Leona Helmsleys amongst us. Sam Farho, what would be the first 3 things to notice when you first walk in a property that was built by the owner himself or some weekend warriors versus professional build? I would look at quality of finish. That's absolutely, because it's the same thing your tenants are going to look for. I would look at quality of finish. I would look at in the systems in the basement. I would want to see how it was assembled. I would want to take one of these lovely little things right here. This is a Klein tool tester. I'm sticking this thing in every single outlet. Yep. because I want to know if it was a rook that did it, then a bunch of these aren't going to be correct. You're not going to see the two oranges and no red. You're going to see some variation thereof. So I do that. I want to look at the caulking job because a lot of people will try and paint themselves. So I want to look at the caulking job. If you already see gaps or it's really just looking for quality. I want to see plumbing. I want to see that there's shutoffs. I want to see that there are not shark bites used, that they've used some sort of a press tool to make connection. I'm just looking for overall quality. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for overall quality. Craftsmen that want to put their names on something, guess what? They've usually done a pretty good job. That's what I would look for. Those are some of the things that I would notice. Around here, sloping floors is a thing. I know that you can have a 14-foot room that has 3 inches of deviation. We try to address that. We're not going to get all 3 inches out, but we can probably get, 2.5. So you still might have some, but that's what I'm looking for. All-nighter hider Bob Langworthy told Matt the classic answer to what's 1 + 1. What do you want it to be? The best part is that I know what the answer to that is, but then he says, oh, but over here, you can actually take this kind of a credit based on X. Dylan, my grandpa told me this, but I don't know if it's correct. Your interest as you pay down the loan gets cheaper. It does because your money gets worth less and you make more money over time. So yes. So if you pay the principal down faster, you pay less interest. If so, why not pay down quick? Well, because your debt might be inexpensive. So I would pay down an 8%. That's why when I look at people financially, you pay the most expensive credit cards off first. You pay the most expensive assets off first. However, if I'm going out there and I'm buying an asset at 7, but I have assets at 4, but I still make the spread that I need to on the 7, I'm going to take out the debt on that and not pay down a 4% loan. That's the value of 30-year fixed rate debt. That's the value. A lot of times when you're house hacking, you bought that property, you lived in that property, you have an owner-occ type of mortgage on it. I would never refinance out of that stuff. Why? It only cost me a ton of money, right? I want that because that owner-occ number is going to be always much less expensive. Sam Farho, what are some construction tools that every self-managing landlord should have always? Redion, to his credit, asked me, Landlord Odyssey, asked me to do a go bag because I talk about my course, I talk about a go bag. But I'm going to do a go bag video for you guys. I'm going to show you what's in my bag. It's really funny because somebody said to me, they go, so one of the big things in the trades is when they see you with brand new equipment, they're like, that's cute. When did he start? Is this his first day? And so I just bought my other bag. The zippers were ripped. The bottom had a hole in it. So I had to kill it. So now I've got a brand new bag. So now it's funny when I show up, they're like, oh, just starting. I'm like, shut up. So it's pretty funny because it's all about that bag. All right. Super chat. Let me just roll down. Master Coach. Nope. Still highlighted that one. Ryan Allen. What do you got? What is the process to bring up floors? Add material or jack up the building? Yes. So the idea is that you can't jack up the building more than like a half an inch in like a week or two. So we'll actually jack it up. And we will watch that steadily happen as we're doing roughing of electrical, roughing of plumbing, as we're doing the demo, all of that stuff. We're going to jack it up and try and take some slop out of those floors. The next best way to do it is if it's barely out, you can use floor leveler. I don't love floor leveler. Hey, there's Millennial Mike. How's it going, buddy? Sunday lives are the must. Thanks, pal. I'm still waiting for Mike's course. I'm going to actually pay to take Mike's course. No joke. I want to see what he has to say. I kind of know, but I'm still going to take his course. I can't wait. Hold on one second. My tax return is pending an additional item. Well, I know. You just told me that yesterday. So out 2 inches in places. So here's what I do. I try and jack it up. Number one. Number two is I actually will get a laser level, apply that across the floor, and then I will use 2x4s. And when you use those 2x4s, you basically coat the bottom of the 2x4. So then it will actually make up, because in some places it'll be, the 2 inches, other places it'll be an inch, but you can coat that board. And when you coat that board, you then put that down, you put them every 12 inches apart. And then you put, 1/2 inch plywood on top of that with glue and nails, and that will make your floor perfectly level. Yep. Yep. Self leveler is expensive. It's about $25 a bag. Exactly. That's why you don't use it on a 2 inch. On a half an inch, on an area, I would pour leveler. When you're talking 2 inches, you have to jack up. I would not only jack up, but I would re-sister the beams underneath it with some sort of LVL, which is laminated vinyl, not laminated vinyl, something voluminous lumber. Damn it! Now I have to look it up. Brain cramp. Laminated veneer lumber. Yeah, so laminated veneer lumber. It's basically where they take lumber and they make it in really tiny thin sheets. They're about 1/8 of an inch, but then they take them and they hot press and glue them together. And then it's really, really thick and it's unbelievably strong. Yeah. So that's what I would do. I would jack up. I would slide some of those in there. That's what we do with a lot of our balloon framing that we have in our stuff. So we lift it up. We put in a couple of those, and that will usually take care of, an inch. And then we can make up the other inch with laser level, looking and seeing what it looks like. And then we actually are coping the bottom of a 2x4, placing it on the floor, and then we're putting down a new subfloor on top of that. So there's a lot of things. Yep. On older buildings with insulation, tenants have complained about utility bills. I looked at our own utility bill, and since December 20, the supply charges have tripled. Same usage. What would you do? Welcome to hell. That's what they're doing. You can call the company, but largely speaking, electric in areas is a monopoly. And so there's usually nothing that you can do because that's what the electric rate is going up. The ceiling should be 2 inches out as well. If you don't jack, how would you address that? The ceiling should be out 2 inches as well. If you don't jack, how would you address that? So same way. We would actually, we would put laser level on that. So thank you, Frank. We would put a laser level on that, and we would then fur out the areas that need to be furred out, because it's ceiling, we can actually do 16 on center first straps, or we can even do 24-inch first straps. And so a furring strap is a piece of basically 1x. If you walk into Home Depot, you see that it's it's like a mini. It's not a 1x1. It's basically a mini 2x4. Is essentially what it is, because they're usually 1 inch tall by 3 inches across, or 3/4 of an inch. It might be 3/4 of an inch by an inch. But you can just look up strapping, and we'll actually use that to create a new rim around the room. But we're looking for level. So when we find that level spot, and usually the low spot is in the middle. That's usually where the low spot is. Sometimes we've had such a dip and we couldn't take it out of the middle of the room. We would actually build false walls on each side. We would then jack up that area. We would then slide the LVL in between, or sister the joists in between, to give it some better strength. That way it's not going to sag as much. And we can take out the sag both of those ways. We take out some of the sag by actually jacking up and resistering joists. The other thing that we'll also do is we will fur out the edges, and then that will give us that level ceiling. Frank, Frank's going to do a video. I'm going to get you, Frank. Frank's going to do a video on his channel where he's going to talk to you about how he would do it, because he's in construction. So Frank's going to do a video on his channel that I'm going to look at. We're like 5/8, and by 1 1/4. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. 3/4. Yeah. 3/4, 5/8, 3/4 by 1 1/2. Yeah. We buy ones that are a little bit bigger. They're probably 1 1/2 to 2 inches, because we'll actually use those on the walls as well. When we have, old fir studs, we'll actually use them on the wall too to give the sheetrockers a flat surface to make it a whole lot easier to screw into. Both tenants were loud at like 3 or 4 in the morning. Man, you guys are going to have to do some evictions over there. Good morning. Nice to hear from you today. You too, summertime Santa. But yeah, Frank, confirm down here that you're going to do a video on your channel talking about this. I think you'll do a great job. That's a big help for my project. Awesome. Yeah. So we've furred above the floor. We've furred on the ceiling. And that furring is basically just meaning you're building out. And so I always look around my office because I used to have some material in my office, but then somebody came in and cleaned my office. But yeah, that will give you what you need to then have it built up to where your ceiling can then be flat. Yep. I don't spend a ton of time on the ceilings. But what I do like to do when we actually expose that, we'll actually find in a lot of these old houses with the rough cut beams, we found snapped joists. So at that point, we want to build a couple of walls on the edges here. Then we want to make sure that there's something underneath us as well, supporting that weight. We then jack that up. We then sister those beams with something that's at least 8 or 10 feet long. What's interesting is that I don't like using I don't like using normal 2x4 lumber because the grain isn't tight enough. So I want something that's going to be far more stable and not crack or any of that other stuff. And so that LVL board, you can buy a 7 1/4 inch tall LVL that's probably 12 feet long. You can buy that board for about $80. But if you put 3 of those in that room and alternate them every other joist, that floor is not going anywhere. That's actually one of the things that we get compliments from on code enforcement is they always say, we love walking into your buildings because we can go into a room and we can jump up and down and we know that we're not going to move. Matt, buildings in California are not out of level. I'll try one to do a video on, and yes, thank you so much. Check out Old REI Guy. He's going to do a video on it. I'll show you what one of ours is like too. I'm going to be on site sometime this week, so I'll try and flip that phone on and show you guys. Because yeah, I think that's something in the Northeast is really a big problem with a lot of the big buildings that we have. You can have 2 or 3 deviations, 2 or 3 inch deviations in floors. Square cuts out of joists leave weak corners. Round cuts are much better structurally if a cut is needed. That's true. Yes. Yes. Good. But again, we're not wanting to cut out of that stuff, right? So we will literally see people that have notched out joists and you're just like, sweet Lord, no. That's one of the things that we do when we get into those assets. We actually have them cut it out and we actually brace it. We cut out that bad one. We reroute whatever the plumbing was. It was a shoddy job. We reroute it and then we replace the joist with an LVL. That's one of the things that I love with my buildings is I know they're done right. So I don't have to worry about that other stuff. That's really a key for us. Yes. So yeah, there's Frank. He's going to do that. Look up. Thank you, Matt and Frank. You guys are welcome. All right. I got to go get ready for my amazing students at 1:00 today. Frank, if you want to attend today, let me know and I'll get you a link. Just send me a message on wherever. Email. I think we emailed back and forth last night. Send me a message on that and I'll get you the link for today so you can come. And if not, then I'll just see you next Saturdays. Guys, have an absolutely awesome week. It's a blast always spending time with you. To my students last night, you're why I do this. You guys are an absolute blast. Last night was a lot of fun. You guys today, such a pleasure spending time with you guys. And then my students, we're going to go hang out for a couple of hours and let's talk real estate. All-nighter. That's the worst part of this job is I have to leave things I really want to fix. Time restraints suck. It's true. That's where Hyder brings up a great point. If you make an old building perfect, you are Bob Vila and you'll likely go bankrupt. You can't make them perfect. What you have to make them is safe and you have to and you have to make them solid. You know, I always say safe and solid. So have a fantastic week, guys. I will see you guys sometime this week. There's going to be a couple of other things. I'm going to talk to Dion and Millennial Mike about the return of Friday live streams, because now I'm just a retiree on a fixed income and just trying to find things for my day. So I hope you guys have an absolutely fantastic day. Take care. Wish you all the best, and good luck this week. Bye, everybody.